It's about 6:03. Lauren, Secretary. Okay, 6:03. Thank you for coming out. We have another meeting back tonight, so we want to take care of our Sites and Facility Committee and move on to the next agenda item. First, the Sites and Facility Committee, we will select a chairperson for the Sites and Facilities Committee. Is there a nomination for a chairperson?
I make a nomination, Louisa be the chair.
Second.
Nomination made by Al, seconded by Michelle. Any questions and concerns? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Louise.
Thank you.
Now I turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for this honor in chairing this Sites and Facilities Committee, one of my favorites. First off, I just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping. I know we have some new people on the committee. Michelle and I are the veterans.
Did you have a secretary? Because I'm not on the committee.
No. Oh, we need
Do you
first
mind
somebody
taking-
take
I don't
minutes.
mind. I'm just
Okay.
asking.
You wanna
Yeah.
take minutes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you. A couple of things. If we could just kind of introduce who is going to be our liaison for this, will be Dr. Seelig. Who else will be in on our sites and facilities meetings on a regular basis? If you could just let the committee, the new members know.
Primarily Rich Jobberg is our Director of Facilities, and then occasionally Brian Hardy, depending on the subject matter.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Oh, and can you get what their positions are?
Oh, yeah,
And-
Rich Jobberg, Director of Facilities, and Brian Hardy, Foreman.
For the city,
Oh, no,
city.
for
Board of Education.
Okay, employees for the Danbury Board of Ed, okay.
So I worked with Mike on putting together an agenda this evening. Moving forward, I know that many of us, we hear from our constituents and teachers and parents about different issues that are relevant in our schools. So best way to handle, so we're not flooding him with everything, is bring them all through me. We'll put them together and I will give them over to Mike and we can kind of filter through, because we might all have the same thing that we want to talk about at one of our meetings, and he will formulate it on the agenda for us. So that's how we'll kind of funnel the information through him, so we're not all bombarding him with that. With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Seelig, so he can take us through an overview of where the committee's been, where we're going, what's been done, and what we have. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so there's 4 more items on the agenda tonight, and since this is the first meeting of this group, I thought we would start with sort of a housekeeping item, but more of just a review of kind of the lay of the land. As everyone likely knows, we share our buildings with the city. The city has a responsibility for maintaining certain aspects of those buildings, and the school district has responsibility for maintaining other aspects of those buildings. So there's a sharing agreement that's been in place since I think Jimmy Carter was president, and I thought I would go through some of the points of that agreement just so that we can get a sense of kind of where certain things fall. So on the school side, so these are the things that Rich and Ryan and their team are sort of addressing every day. So we would handle things like athletic equipment, fencing, furniture, desks, cleaning the building, window treatments, so blinds, curtains, anything like that. Custodial, instructional equipment, so these would be whiteboards, Promethean boards, things like that. Communication equipment, so telephones, things like that. Clocks, PA systems, those would all be ours. And then consumable items that work into this, so bulbs, batteries, lamps, bathroom supplies. Also dispensers of any type, so toilet paper dispenser, soap, or a hand sanitizer dispenser. Also signage, interior and exterior signage. And then we also handle things like door hardware, closure devices, locks, keys, and then a number of other maintenance items like changing filters, air filters, water filters, things like this. So that's primarily where Brian and Rich spend their time. And then, of course, there's all sorts of things that just come up, right? You know, pest control and things that need to be triaged sort of in real time. repairs, if we do damage in the building, if a kid breaks a window or something like that, that's on us to repair. So that's on the school side. And then on the city side, so they're more responsible for kind of the bigger structural systems that keep the buildings going. So on their side, it's more things like the building envelope, the roof membrane, the structural integrity, walls, floors, heating and AC systems, plumbing, electrical, fire protection, water, sewer pumps, elevators, and then grounds maintenance, so mowing the lawn and things like that. So you can see that there is a real sort of division. The sort of major systems are going to be handled largely through the city Public Works Department, and the sort of more interior parts of the building and things that are just, kind of not, you're not going to need a jackhammer or rip open walls, right? That's probably a good way to think about it. If you need to do that kind of stuff, that's going to be city. If it's stuff that you can handle with a drill or some, light electrical work, then, that would be something that we would do. So, any questions on that before we go on?
So, a quick question. So if there's a water break in Morris Street School, who needs to turn that off?
So that, I'll let Rich.
So, all of our head custodians are trained to, know where certain equipment is, where the boilers are, where's the emergency shut off for the boiler, emergency shut off for water. So that would be our first line of defense would be to turn the water off, and then we would contact the city right away.
And what's the turnaround time from the city to react to that?
I guess it depends. If it's during work hours, it could be 10 minutes to 20 minutes. If it's on the weekends, it could be a little bit longer.
In emergency stuff, they're pretty quick on emergency.
Yeah. Yeah, but during any pipe breaks, we've been the people responsible for cleaning the flood and minimizing the flood damage. And one of the first things I do is evaluate how bad it is, and is it something that my crew can do, or do I need to call a disaster restoration company? The company we've used, J.P. McGuire, they've been pretty responsive. They get here within a half hour most times.
With the crew.
What about the HVAC systems and filters? Who takes care of that?
So the systems themselves, so the ductwork, all that is the city, but filters and things like that, Rogers Gas.
So the city actually provides the air filters for us. My guys put the air filters in.
So there's no cost to us relative to the material cost, just the labor to install?
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Thanks.
Mike, real quick, can you just go over what's the process once one of the schools has an issue or repair that needs to get done?
Yeah.
What's the process from that point to getting it completed, just so some of our new
Yeah.
committee members
So I'll start
understand
high
that?
level, and Rich can kind of get into the granular. So whoever identifies it will notify the head custodian. The head custodian will submit a work order. Up until last year, that was a paper process. We've converted it to a digital system, albeit through Google Docs. There's still some improvements to be made on this system. We are working towards getting an industry standard system in place, but it's a big undertaking to do, and then you have to train everybody on how to use that system. So that work order would get submitted through the head custodian, and it would land in Rich's office, typically with the secretary. And then that secretary would look at it and triage and basically say, okay, this is a Board of Ed issue that would go to Rich, or this is a city issue which would go to Public Works. I'll let Rich take it from there.
Sure, and depending on the urgency of the work order, we tell our guys, if there's no heat or if there's a pipe break, call me, call Brian, and we'll call the city right away, and then we'll put the work order in. But anything that's very urgent, we contact them by phone right away, whether it's 11 o'clock on a Friday night or weekend, whatever time it is.
Juanita, did you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
Are you done with the steps? And so that's where,
Yeah.
so does anybody, what is the communication? So the work order has gone in, given to the head custodian, they digitally send it in through Google, it goes to your office.
Yep.
What is,
Okay,
How-
so the
is
process
there
from
a
there.
communication response to the work order?
Sure, there's actually, unique, I'll say, because, you know, we have shared responsibilities between public buildings and the Board of Ed, but we have a different work order system than public buildings does. So one of my two secretaries, they'll get the work order and they'll actually submit it on this, if it's a city work order, they'll submit it on the city work order system and they'll document it on our work order system, the work order number, and then typically it's Terry, she'll review that on a regular basis to look at the, you know, she'll get an email update when it's changes. So when it's been approved or denied or completed, she gets an email from the city and she'll update that in our work order system.
Okay, so, having heard that, I'd just like to offer a suggestion that work orders go in and then the communication kind of stops. As far as, I'm not saying you contact the city or we contact, but could there be some way that we've received your concern, we've put in the work order, we will get back to you as soon as we hear from, you know,
Yeah.
is that a possible, does the system set up that we can, if it's a Google Doc that we're using or the Google system, we know where the work order came from, which building,
Yep.
and probably from whom, right? It's usually the administrator, just some,
So, yes, is the answer to your question, and they do their best trying to do that in real time, and usually it's on the phone with the custodian and the principal while they're running back and forth, depending on the nature of it. The problem with the Google system is it's all manual, so somebody has to actually, you know, pick up the phone and call or pull that work order or send an email. And where we're trying to get to with the more industry standard system is that would be an automated thing, and then the person who submitted it would be able to go right into the system and see, okay, it was submitted at 9:25 a.m. and it's been marked as received and it's in progress. So when we get to that level of a system, that would get automated, and then the principal or the custodian will be able to see in real time the status of that work order. So that's definitely a place we want to get to, and we're hoping we can get there by the end of this year.
Rich?
Is there a reasonable turnaround time between, and I'm sure this list of work orders, I don't know how many open items you have, but probably a few. But is there a reasonable turnaround time that's on?
Yeah.
That
And you talk about this kind of goes back to the triage, right? If it's something kind of fast and, you know, Brian's on the truck and, you know, he can head over there and take care of it, it's minutes sometimes, you know, and sometimes for the bigger issues, if it's something that goes to the city work order system and they're waiting on a part, you know, it can sort of get fragmented pretty quickly, but I'll leverage speak
Yeah.
more to that.
If it's a city work order, oftentimes I'm going to a role of liaison between the Board of Ed and public buildings to get information, like for instance, the heat at G building. So what's going on with G building? Okay, you have parts that need to be ordered. What's the lead time on the parts? When can you have a crew here? So I try to get as much information as I can from the city to give back to Mike and Board of Ed.
does the person, let's hypothetically say in a classroom, sink overflows or something like that, where a teacher can't function and then creates this work order, gets in touch with you. At some point in time, is that person aware or notified or can go into the system to see what the status is, like supplies on order, so they know things to be attended to, as opposed to calling you up and saying, hey, what's going on?
At this time, the system isn't sophisticated enough to do that.
No.
And that would be the more advanced system that we're hoping to move into. Yeah.
Al, did you have a question? And then
Yeah,
Juanita.
so at first I apologize because I'm new to this, so I'm on a learning curve. I'm like a sponge, okay? So if I ask a stupid question, please, I apologize. But I'm just trying to get the gist. You know, to Anita's comment and Rich, I think that if you create a Google form, you can automatically create into an Excel, a spreadsheet of what time that was submitted and all that. I think to Anita's thing is that I've heard teachers saying that I submitted a work order, but I don't know where it is. I haven't heard anything from it, and I think to her question is a nice, quick email. It doesn't mean right away, but somehow through the day to send and say, hey, we received your work order, we're working on it. That's just more of a credibility for the board, okay? The other part of it is, you know, I find listening to people, I find that we are on a reactive mode instead of being on a proactive mode, okay? It seems like every time something happens, we've got to react to it, instead of really, I gotta be careful the words I choose, but the reality is, like I said, we're being on a reactive mode. If it's nothing happened, I think everything is okay. Well, unfortunately, our school system, our school buildings are getting old, really old. And I think that we need to dedicate a team together to do a monthly survey of all the equipment or everything going on in our buildings, because it's not getting any younger. And I think that that's part of being proactive. You know, we should have parts already for the heating system, not to wait to order them. You know what I'm saying? That's being proactive. We know what system it is. We know that it's not the first time it broke, for sure, okay? So why don't we have the extra supplies? We have the equipment so we can do a quick reaction. I'm a believer, and I'm just one of them, okay? I'm a believer that we, as a Board of Education, should have our own maintenance team together that we can move, rotate them around to different schools instead of depending on the city, okay? I really believe that. Because I think that the city, I hate to say this, but sometimes their actions shows that we're not a priority. And our education is a priority. And I think by having our own maintenance teams, I think that can benefit us, especially in our old buildings. Thank you.
Juanita, did you have a question? And then we'll move on to the next agenda.
Yes, I do. Over the years, one of the things that has been asked for from Danbury Public Schools is to alleviate the confusion of whose responsibility is. Can that, whatever you read off today, be written up, given out, so that people are very much aware of what is the Danbury Public Schools' responsibility as far as the upkeep and responsibility of buildings, and what we do not have control over that belongs to the city. That was one thing. And so I am going to, Mike, push in a little bit with you right now to say, I don't think that it's enough for us to, on the Sites and Facilities Committee, to say we're working on a system. We are coming forward with a reputation of not responding to work orders, when I'm hearing that we are but the communication is broken. So even if it means a quick email or a quick phone call, I think that we have to take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I hear you, and it's definitely something that we want to improve upon, because this has been a manual process now for so long, you know, and it's really come down to an issue of manpower, just having enough people there to kind of receive and send the emails, and you know, we have people just running around doing deliveries and changing light bulbs, and you know, doing the best they can to be responsive to these. As I mentioned, the system that we are putting in place, we're pretty close, Rich, if I understand, to be ready to roll.
Yeah.
So what I think would be the best interest of the district, but also would be responsive to the request here of the board. I think we're just going to try to accelerate getting that system up and running, and my hope is that that will sort out a lot of these issues pretty quickly without having to reshuffle resources or change anybody's work duties to sit and respond to emails. So I don't know, ballpark, how long do you think we could be before we're live?
I would say by the end of February.
End of February, okay.
And I just wanted to mention one more thing with the process of the work order system, that, because I understand that there's concern of the teachers not getting information, and the way our system is set up, and it's more of a control thing, is the work orders go through either the head custodian or the principal for the most part. And one of the reasons we do it like that is, you know, what's to stop a teacher from saying, oh, I'm gonna take down this light fixture in there, and we would really want the principal to be aware of that and okay that work order. We don't want, you know, it to get out of control.
Yeah. And too many work orders coming through would only jam up the system and ultimately slow it down. So there is a control just on making sure that what they're getting is manageable and, you know, reasonable.
Real quick question, what's
Yeah.
the communication been from the city to us in regards to status of what we put in, what work orders we're putting in with them?
So that one's a little more challenging. At varying times, we've had different levels of access to pull reports on that work order system. Currently, I believe we have to pull individual work orders by number. So if we want to check it, you have to go in and look at the specific order. I don't think we have the ability to run a report currently.
No. The way it's set up, if I put a work order in, I'm the only one that can see the status of that work order. At one time, we had a group user where Brian, myself, and Terry were on it, and that wasn't working out, so I rely heavily on Terry to update the information that she gets and put it on our work order system.
And it currently is manual, so someone has to sit there, I don't know, 10, 15 hours a week. What do you think she dedicates to this task?
Yeah.
A significant part of her job is doing something manually that could be done at the touch of a button, or some things different. So, yeah.
With the new system you're talking about, is that a purchased system or something we've developed internally?
It's something that was purchased a while back that,
Would it include some of the bells and whistles we're talking about now that'll
Yes.
pick up the efficiency? Yeah.
Yes.
Michelle, you have a question?
So the system that we currently have, is it that we don't have access, or that it's kind of an antiquated system and we're utilizing all this administrative time
Yeah.
to update it? Because I know I used to oversee warranty, a development, an aging report, and it was manual. It was with the printer paper, so I'm wondering, is it access or is it that the system is that antiquated?
It's a good question, and maybe a little bit of both. I don't know, Rich. if
You're talking about our current work order system?
Yeah, I think pulling from school too is.
In other words, is it capable of achieving what we need, and we are just limited in access with the city, and we need to work on that? Because I understand what Al was saying about the maintenance in-house, but, you know, just in the background, you've got liability, that'd be a plumber, electrician, you know, all kinds of expense and just keeping staff, you know, waiting for something. So I'm thinking it's access, maybe communication between what our access is and the system, because I think I was working on a report 25 years ago with paper, pink and white and ribbon, and there are aging reports, so it's gotta be in the system. We just need to have that accessibility that would help.
What we're currently using is basically a Google Doc. So when I do update the principals and the head custodians, I'm manually manipulating this document and cutting and pasting. So, you know, they're getting the pertinent information. Whereas the system we're going to, I can click on reports, work orders older than 60 days, what school it is, so.
Or who's got plumbing issues and
Yes.
spits it all out, so.
Could be
It
by
just seems
trade.
like it might be our access. If we could find that, that'd be great. Thank you.
I will just assure the board this is a big priority for us, and we're going to push on getting the new system rolling as quickly as possible.
Ready to move on to the next? Do you have one more question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, one more, and then we're
I'm
gonna move
sorry.
on, because I
And
want to
it
make
has
sure
to
we
do with the
this.
budget, because we're talking about it, the capital budget, and then the regular budget that we're talking about. If you could talk about those numbers, and I know that, how many projects, or I know you've given us a list about a year ago, but we're looking at, again, parking about almost $2 million in capital improvement. That would be this discussion tonight, right?
Yeah, I don't think, did we have that on the agenda
No,
for tonight?
John has it on finance, so it's going to.
It's gonna come up
It'll come
after,
up
yeah,
then.
so let's,
Okay, great.
I just wanna
Thank
get
you.
through the background stuff
Thank
for the
you.
new members, but yeah,
Beautiful.
okay, onward.
All right, so the next item is just an overview of some current building issues. I wanted to focus on two specifically, Danbury High School E building and Moore Street School. These were two kind of hot issues, no pun intended, in the last couple weeks that even made it into the newspaper. So I just want to um, talk a little bit about some of the issues. G building, and I have a memo here that Antonio shared with me just this afternoon with an update, so I'm gonna just read a few sentences from it, so everybody can hear directly, basically from the city buildings department. 2 of the 3 rooftop units in G-Wing are currently running and being monitored. Now these rooftop units, these are the air handlers. Some of them have been malfunctioning, but there was concern over a low freon level. The systems are being flushed, and a new freon is being installed, and that should be done by Friday of this week. So that should sort out the rooftop unit issue. Now, there's a separate issue with the boilers, and sorry, I had this all highlighted.
Well, I know what they were saying, there's 2 boilers and it's for redundancy, so pretty much all the schools, we have at least 2 boilers, so if one goes out, there's a backup. It's very rare that we need both boilers running at the same time. Like if we get down to a 0-degree day, that's where both boilers would kick in.
Right, so there's a level of redundancy. Now, what was happening was there's issues with the compressors, and we keep blowing compressors. And we've not been able to figure out why this is. Now, this last time, they quickly ordered the new compressors. They've been installed. But this time, they've gone a little bit deeper. They've had a contractor come in and look at, and basically do a diagnostic of the system. Antonio described it as a line set. Basically, they go through and they measure all the piping, and they look at the gauge because they can tell whether the pressure is too high or too low. They look at the gauge of the joints and kind of the elbows in the system to make sure that the pressure in that system is consistent. And this is a huge job because you're measuring every centimeter of line through that entire building. So they've completed that, and this is the first time they've done that since these problems in G building started, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now. So that's actually gone back to the manufacturer's engineers. So they're like really going back to sort of like the genesis of the creation of this system to figure out if there's something in those lines that's making the compressors work too hard, maybe they're too small, whatever it is, to figure out if that's the issue. And if they identify that issue, then this ideally would be the solution that we've been trying to figure out for so long. Because replacing these compressors, it's really just treating the symptoms. There is an underlying issue there, and they've taken steps to really get to the bottom of this because, I mean, they're just as frustrated with it as we are. They're the ones going over there having to solve it all the time, and just like us, they've got limited resources and limited workers. So,
Is any of this expense still under warranty? Any of these compressors that because this has been going on, I mean, the
Yeah.
building is not that old.
I don't know I don't know if there's going to be a reimbursement. I know the city purchased the compressors outright, but whether there's going to be a reimbursement through warranty, I don't know. I can find that out for you.
Okay, thank you. Any question? Yeah, good.
I'm not a committee member, but just to follow up on Louise's question,
Yeah,
I guess is there any liability on the part of the manufacturer who developed the system?
yeah.
I mean, bigger than just like a warranty issue, like if they have installed something in our school that doesn't work because of a flaw in their design,
Right.
do we have any recourse?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's certainly on my list for when the report comes back from this engineer. So I'll hopefully have more information about that by the next time we get it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? G building? No? Okay.
Okay, and then the second one I want to talk a little bit about was Morris Street. There's a couple things going on there. There were some leaks with the tank in the boiler. So while they were in there, they made a few repairs to it to keep it running. While they were making those repairs, they found there was some damage to the tank. They've since ordered a new tank. Once that tank goes in, it's more preventative at this point. They just want to make sure it doesn't fail at some future point. So they're going to be reinstalling that tank, and then they believe Morris Street will be up and running with no more problems. Now, one other piece that I just wanted to talk about this, and this kind of comes back to some of the inefficiencies that we were just talking about with work orders. There's an issue with the building management system. Now, what this is the system in G Building is very high tech. And I think I mentioned this somewhere else, but you know what that means is basically it's, you know, it was described to me as the repairmen don't show up with the toolbox, they show up with the laptop. So getting people who understand it well enough to troubleshoot it, to solve the problems can be a challenge. Up until we had our breach last summer, it was possible for the control companies to remote in via the VPN, look at the whole system, do whatever diagnostics they needed, adjust, you know, pull whatever, you know, digital levers they needed, and make adjustments to the system, close their computer, and then, you know, and then that was it, and we'd be done in an hour. You know, and these guys are, I don't know where they are, Hartford or Stanford or something.
They're out of Hartford area.
They're out of Hartford, yeah. So in the absence, when the breach happened, we had to literally lock that door that allowed the remote access, because that was the kind of entry point for the breach. So now that that wall has been essentially bricked up, that access is no longer available. So when these failures started happening a couple weeks ago, they said, well, let me just get into the system and check it. They said, well, we can't. Okay, well, now we got to send a guy out there. Well, we're in Hartford. It's the dead of winter. Everybody's furnaces and whatever are going down. So you guys are in the queue. We'll be there next Tuesday, right? So Antonio's guys go out and they try to troubleshoot it and they do the best they can. But the people who understand this system, who installed it, who manage the control system, can't be here for a few more days. The system limps along. So the reason I say this is because this is one thing that we're trying to accelerate. Getting that access point rebuilt is very complicated technical work, and I don't understand it. It's an IT security thing. But we have now reallocated resources and people to accelerate that and get that built back up more safely. So there's a new system coming on board that's going to allow that remote access channel to open back up. And the next time, if there's a next time, right, this sort of thing happens, that portal will now allow them to remote in from Hartford. They'll be able to look at it in the moment rather than saying, I'll be there next Tuesday. So there is you know, a bit of good news there. But you know, this is part of, you know, some of the security features that we had in that 785 ask that John's going to be talking about a little bit. It's things like this that on the surface you kind of say, oh, that's just, you know, network computer stuff. But these are the real world implications of not having those sorts of features available. It turned into a heating problem that made a lot of people cold. So it is important, you know, that we think about these impacts when we talk about, you know, things that may seem a little bit arcane. So that's all I have on 3. Is there any questions? Okay. Number 4, I'll turn this one over to Rich for his tips.
Well, we recently had our holiday break, which gave us an opportunity. We did a lot of relamping in areas we couldn't get to. We replaced all the lights in Shelter Rock at the gym and the cafeteria.
What's that? You say relamping?
Relamping, yes.
That's a very glamorous way of saying
Yeah.
it. Light bulb change.
We replaced all the lights at Stadley Ruff Gym and the Media Center. Also Broadview Middle School, the gym, and the auditorium.
Why do we need a break for them? Just tell them why we need to squeeze out.
Well, yeah, the school is basically used, not just even the school day, but after, for instance, Broadview Middle School auditorium, they're practicing after school.
To get to the lights, so it's a big ordeal.
Yeah. So we did all this stage lighting at Broadview in preparation of their play, so we should be in good shape there. We replaced all the air filters in the schools for the mechanical units. That's something we do 3 times a year. Detail cleaned rooms, scrubbed and recoated hallways and floors. We did some fence repairs at Park Avenue. Somebody had hit the fence in the front of the school. Also, we had a broken section of fence in the trash corral. Pembroke, we closed off. There was an open section where kids could run down the hill, so we closed off that with the fence and a gate. And also in the Pembroke staff bathrooms, we had a female-male inequity of staff restrooms. So what we did is we made all the restrooms all gender and put a little occupied latch. So you would know if somebody's in there, and walk in on anybody. So that's what we did recently. Looking forward to spring break, we're gonna have Shock Electric do some electrical work in Hatter's Cafe. They've been able to secure a lot of nice new equipment, you know, through a grant, which they don't currently have a lot of the required electrical in there, so they're gonna be upgrading the electrical in there. We also replaced some play traps at Broadview Middle School and Rogers Park Middle School. That's for the art rooms that you need something to, you know, weed out all the debris and stuff. And those traps were probably about 20 years old and had seen better days. We also installed a new kiln at Rogers Park. And looking for this summer, the main items are King Street Intermediate and Millridge primary flooring. We also have bollards and visitor parking signs that we plan on installing.
So that's our full report.
Any questions?
Of course. And I'll give it to you, Mike. And I had said at a previous meeting, I'm glad that we're going through our school buildings, and I just need to know who is responsible for our Crosby Street building, where we house our Endeavor program. And how often do we go in? Is there maintenance assigned there on a regular basis?
Yeah, so that one, we lease that property.
Mhm.
We have a landlord and it's just a private owner. There are certain aspects of that building, just kind of regular, you know, vacuuming and things like that, which fall on us, but Rich can talk a little bit more
Yeah,
about.
tell me how often that happens.
So in the past year, when the lease was renegotiated, we added the responsibility of the smaller day-to-day maintenance for my people. So I've had my maintenance guy go in there replacing toilets, replacing light bulbs, light fixtures. If it's a larger item, I think over $2,000, we rely on the landlord to take care of that.
Did you say, Rich, we've over-delivered on our share of the agreement?
Mr. Girgenti has spent a good deal of time there,
Yeah.
you know,
Is it the
unclogging
landlord?
toilets.
Oh, no.
No,
Maintenance.
my maintenance guy, Mike Girgenti is assigned there. He's done his share of toilet clogs and actually replaced toilets that were a consistent problem. He's done a significant amount of lighting there. We get our fair share of vandalism there, so probably in the past year, we've spent over $5,000 worth of sheetrock, rebuilding walls, and putting up a more vandal-proof wall that nobody would want to punch because they would hurt their hand.
And I'll just say, you'll hear us refer to Mike and Carlos quite frequently. They're our main guys, and they are just, I mean, they're rock stars. And, you know, just the most recent thing, you know, I guess it was the night of the heavy rains at Park Ave. They got there at, 1 in the morning, 1 a.m.
Actually, I think Mike was there from 11 o'clock at night, and then we called Carlos in, and so the two of them that were there from midnight throughout the next day, pumping water out of the basement of Park Avenue. We had had a similar event, you know, 3 weeks before, so we were a little bit more prepared. We already had the carpets up off the ground, and we had our equipment there, so we did a good job of getting the water out as expeditiously as we could. Since that last flood, the city found a a piece of the storm drain outside the building was damaged or crushed or something, and they repaired that. And we did have a heavy rain after that where we had a test run, and we didn't get any water in after that, so my guys, they're,
Yeah, they're like the heart and soul of the buildings, and, you know, like Chris said, they were there through the night, mopping, sandbagging, moving furniture, you know, just kind of being ready for when the next kind of rush of water comes in to make sure it gets redirected into, you know, into drains, so they were.
Can I make a request
Sure.
that perhaps tour that building where the doors are hanging off the hinges and the walls need to be cleaned? I'll go with you.
Sure. I know the landlord does have a cleaning company. So I'd be happy to do
We
the
could just
tour.
look
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
decide who's responsible
Yeah,
for what.
I know if it's vandalism, it's gonna come on me, so Michael has also done his share of painting over there. I'd
Appreciate
be
it.
happy to take a tour there.
I just have to second what you guys are saying about Mike and Carlos. They're awesome. They're amazing.
Thank you.
They really are.
Any other questions? Terry? Yes.
Thank you. Yesterday, I had occasion to be at Danbury High School and noticed that the loudspeaker for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, the intercom system was not as effective as it should be. Just want to point that out, if you didn't already know.
It's funny you said that because I have a new telecom person, John Burrow, who just started in the past month, and he's been working with my part-time retired guy, just trying to get as much information from him as possible before he retires. And that was one of their stops yesterday afternoon, was to repair the multicom at Danbury High School.
So I just missed you.
If no other committee members, if all committee members have answered?
Yep.
Okay.
So,
Just a quick thought. Michael, is it possible that a list can be provided to all board members or through Rich, a list of what the city takes care of and what the board takes care of? I have that list because someone sent it to me because I've been asking for it, but I have it at home. So I'm quite sure when I received, all the other board members received it. And so everyone be on the same page. Could we do that and get that list out to the board members? And my other thought, and go back to Al, we should keep parts. You should have an extra part. Are you allowed to order extra parts and have extra parts at any time?
Absolutely, and that's a practice that we do. You know, for instance, we were just talking about the multi-com system at the high school, and we ordered an extra control board and an extra amplifier to have that on hand. I think the issue we were discussing was on the HVAC side with the city, that they didn't have an extra compressor sitting around. And,
Right.
you know,
Those are about $25,000.
Right.
So
And it takes time from one place to get to the other.
Yeah.
We understand that.
And another good point that Alan made was with maintenance being reactive as opposed to proactive. And I'll say that is a sign of an underfunded budget with the maintenance department. You know, if an organization is doing all the PMs that they should do and staying up on everything, things are less likely to break down.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you.
anything else? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
One last thing before we leave. I'm using my board chairperson privilege. To my committee chairpersons, we're sort of in a mode that we're gonna be going through for the next couple of months. I had a discussion with Teresa. we might have to back up some committees together. So if you can take 5 items that are top issues that you want to deal with when you have your committee meetings, let's deal with those, so we won't have to run overlaps into the other committee if we have to schedule 2 committees at one time. And I just want to say to the liaisons for this committee, the chairperson, I certainly appreciate that, because everyone know we're dealing with the budget. We want to give you a break, get back to the budget, and so we all can get home. And thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Rich, second.
Second?